10 players unavailable or in serious doubt for Arsenal right now. And I keep seeing people talk about this like it is just a rough patch, like the injuries will clear up, everyone will be back and Arsenal will be fine. I want to challenge that today because what is happening right now is not just a bad run of luck. It is something deeper. And by the end of this video, you will see exactly why. But here is what I want you to hold on to from the very start. There is one injury on this list that almost nobody is talking about. And it is the one that worries me most about the rest of this season. We will get to that. Because here is the thing. The Southampton game on April the 4th, that is not the real problem. The real problem is what this injury list is actually revealing about this Arsenal squad. And almost nobody is asking the right question. So that is what we are doing today. Let us get into it. I am Amelia. If you are new here, good timing by the way. This channel is about serious Arsenal analysis. No noise, no clickbait, just real football thinking broken down properly. If that is what you are after, subscribe and hit the bell now. Because this week, I am covering everything. Southampton, Sporting CP, the title race, all of it. You do not want to miss any of it. And honestly, I have been sitting with this injury list for the past day or so, going through it properly. And there was a moment where I genuinely had to pause and think about what this season is now going to look like. Because when you lay it all out together, it hits differently. And later in this video, I am going to show you something about Arsenal's squad construction that I think changes how you look at this situation entirely. Right, let us talk about what is actually going on. So let me just set the scene first, because I think it is important you feel the full weight of where Arsenal are right now before we start pulling things apart. 10 days ago, Arsenal lost the Carabao Cup final to Manchester City 2-0 at Wembley. Arteta chose to start Kepa in goal for that game. That decision did not work out. Now, before this squad has even had time to reset from that result, they are walking straight into one of the most congested stretches of their entire season. April the 4th, FA Cup quarter-final, Southampton, away. April the 7th, Champions League, Sporting CP, away. In Lisbon, April the 7th, Champions League, Sporting CP, Bournemouth, 3 huge games, 8 days. And right now, Arsenal cannot name a fully fit matchday squad. Think about what that actually means. Saliba, Gabriel, Odegaard, Timber, Merino, Trossard, Eze, Madueke, all either injured or serious doubts. Then Rice and Saka both leave the England squad early for medical assessments. And on top of that, Hincapié pulls out of the Ecuador squad on the 29th of March with a fitness concern of his own. This is where the situation really starts to bite. So when people say 10 injury worries, they are not being dramatic. If anything, that number could end up being conservative. Now, before I go any further, I want to flag something. There is a specific tactical consequence of these injuries that Arsenal's opponents have almost certainly already identified. We're going to come back to that in a few minutes, because it changes everything about how you read the next 3 games. Now, here is where I want to slow down, because the easy version of this story is just reading out the injury list and saying Arsenal are in trouble. And yes, they are in trouble. But the more important question, the one that actually matters for the rest of this season, is this. Has Arsenal's right side completely collapsed? And if it has, what does that mean for their genuine title chances? I know that sounds dramatic, but stay with me, because when I lay this out, I think you will see exactly what I mean. And by the time we get to the tactical breakdown, you will understand why that question is not just about Southampton. It is about whether this Arsenal squad is actually built to win a title. Let us start with the basics, build it up piece by piece. Arteta's system is a 4-3-3, high press, width from the wingers, a midfield 3 with a defensive anchor, a creative hub and a runner. When that system is fully loaded, it is one of the most aggressive and intelligent structures in European football. But, and this is the part people sometimes miss, every single piece of that system depends on specific players doing very specific jobs. You cannot just swap names in and out and expect the same output. The players and the system are connected. Remove the right players and the whole thing changes. So let me go position by position. In goal, Raya comes back in. That is simple, no debate. Raya starts. The Kepa question is answered automatically. In defence, Arsenal actually have reasonable cover here. White, Calafiori, Mosquera, and if Hincapié is fit, he gives Arteta, a left-footed ball player at centre-back, exactly what his build-up style wants. If Hincapié is not available, Miles Lewis-Skelly becomes a real option. So defensively, manageable. Now, the midfield, and this is where things start to get complicated. Without Odegaard, without Rice, without Merino, the three players most likely to start are Zubimendi, Nørgaard and Havertz. Now, individually, three good footballers, but as a midfield unit in a high-stakes knockout game, that combination is organised, it covers ground, it protects the back line, but it does not break lines, and here is why that matters. Any team facing Arsenal right now, even Southampton, is going to sit deep and make themselves difficult to break down. Because why would you press high against a team that is already struggling to create? You let them have the ball, you stay compact, you wait, and against this particular midfield, that plan has a genuine chance of working. Right, now let us go forward. And this is where everything shifts. I want you to picture Arsenal's right side from last season for a moment. Saka on the right wing, Timber at right back pushing high, White providing cover and width behind him, Odegaard drifting right, connecting the midfield to the attack. That right side was the most dangerous attacking corridor in the Premier League. It pressed intelligently, it overloaded fullbacks, it created constantly. Now look at that same right side today. Saka, fitnessed out, left England early. Timber, fitnessed out, ankle concern. White, potentially available but undercooked after a disrupted week. Odegaard, out. Every single player in that right side unit is either injured, a serious doubt, or running below full fitness. Honestly, when I mapped this out properly, this surprised me more than any individual injury on the list. This detail matters more than most people are currently giving it credit for. And here is what really gets me. This was supposed to have been solved. Arsenal signed Noni Madueke in the summer specifically to address this, to give Arteta a genuine right-wing option with quality and directness. They signed Eberechi Eze to provide attacking versatility across the front line. Both of them are now injured as well, so the right side depth problem was not fixed. It was hidden, and right now the curtain has been pulled back completely. Something important happened in the summer transfer window, and I will show you exactly what it means in a moment. So if Sociedad is not available against Southampton, who plays right wing? Potentially Max Daumann, an academy player, in an FA Cup quarter-final. Now, I am not dismissing Daumann as a footballer. He has talent, he has a future here, but let me ask you this directly. Dear you, if an academy player is your answer in a quarter-final, what does that tell you about the actual depth of your squad? Take a moment with that. Every Arsenal supporter watching this right now knows exactly what I am talking about. This has been a concern quietly sitting in the background all season. And right now it is front and centre. But here is where I want to go next. Because there is one player missing from this squad whose absence explains something much bigger than his position on the team sheet. And I think most people have completely underestimated it. All right, now I want to shift the conversation because I have seen a lot of the coverage this week focused on Madueke, on Rice, on Saka, and yes, those are important, obviously. But the injury that has the biggest long-term impact on Arsenal's season, it is Mikel Merino. Here is the part most people have missed entirely. I genuinely do not think it is getting the attention it deserves. Merino broke his foot, had surgery. He is not coming back quickly. And I want to be really precise about why this matters. Because on the surface, Merino looks like a midfield option, a rotation player, someone who adds depth. But that is not what he actually does in Arteta's system. Merino's specific job is to press aggressively from a deep position, recover the ball in dangerous areas of the pitch, and then immediately convert that defensive action into an attacking one. He bridges the gap between winning the ball back and going forward. He makes Arsenal's press sharper because he recovers possession in more advanced zones than a traditional defensive midfielder. Now think about who else at Arsenal does that job. Zubimendi, excellent footballer. His strengths are positional intelligence and passing range. He does not press with that same aggression. Nørgaard, great work rate, defensively disciplined, but he is a different type of player entirely. Havertz, he presses from the front, but using him as a deep press trigger compromises everything he offers going forward. Nobody in this squad fills the Merino role the way Merino does. And here is the consequence. Without him, Arsenal's press is slower, less connected, less dangerous in the high areas. In a cup quarter-final against championship opposition, you can probably mask that, but against Sporting CP in the Champions League, against City in the title run-in, that is where it shows. That is where the details matter. And that is why when people ask me which injury worries me most about Arsenal's season, not just this week, but the whole season, it is Merino every time. Now, we are going to come back to the broader squad picture in a moment, because there is a question about this summer's transfer window that I think needs to be asked directly. But first, let me show you the specific tactical scenario that Southampton will almost certainly try to set up, because this is where the injury crisis becomes a genuine on-pitch problem. Right, let me give you a specific tactical picture now, because there is something about the Southampton fixture I do not want anyone to overlook. Southampton are Championship opposition. Arsenal should win this game. I am not suggesting otherwise. But Southampton are at home in a quarter-final under a manager in Tonda Eckert who has organised them well defensively since taking over in December. And here is the scenario that I think is genuinely underappreciated. Southampton sit in a compact 4-4-2 block. They make the pitch small. They deny space in behind. Arsenal's midfield three of Zubimendi, Norgard and Havertz move the ball well. They are tidy, they keep possession, but they cannot find the vertical pass to unlock a deep defensive structure. Martinelli on the left is Arsenal's most dangerous forward option. Southampton know this, so what do? They overload the left channel. They double up on Martinelli. They force Arsenal to switch play to the right side. And the right side has almost nothing behind it. No Saka creating off the dribble, no Timber overlapping to stretch the back line, no Odegaard drifting into pockets between the lines. Just a young player or an underfit winger trying to manufacture something against a deep, motivated, well-organised Championship defence. That is a real scenario. That is not me looking for problems. Arsenal should still find a way to win. Probably they do. But here is why I am raising this. 3 days after Southampton, they fly to Lisbon. Sporting CP press relentlessly at home. Their front line never stops running. They are not a passive team. If Arsenal arrive in Lisbon with low confidence, a tired squad, and this same depleted attacking structure on the right side, that is a dangerous evening. And I want to ask you something honestly. If you are Arteta right now, what is your actual priority? The FA Cup, the Champions League, the Premier League? Because here is the honest answer. With this squad in this condition, he cannot pursue all three at full intensity. Something has to give. The question is, what? We're going to come back to that. But first, my honest verdict on what this injury crisis is actually telling us about Arsenal. So let me give you my honest assessment, because this is not about being negative for the sake of it. I want to be accurate. That is all. The injury crisis Arsenal are dealing with right now is not purely bad luck. It is the visible cost of a squad that is brilliant at the top, genuinely world-class in its best 11, but too thin in specific areas when those top players are unavailable. And the area where that thinness is most exposed is wide attacking positions, particularly on the right. Now look, the summer was excellent in many ways. Gyökeres up front has been transformative. We completely changed Arsenal's identity as an attacking unit. Mosquera and Hincapié showed smart defensive planning. Zubimendi and Norgard were both excellent pieces of business, but the right wide area, the most critical attacking corridor in Arteta's system, was not adequately reinforced in depth. Madueke and Eze were brought in to address that. Both are now injured, and the gap that was always underneath the surface has been fully exposed. This is where things change for me in terms of how I am viewing the rest of this season. Max Dowman may well have a real future at this football club, but an academy player starting an FA Cup quarter-final because there are no other options is not bold rotation. It is a depth problem wearing the clothes of an opportunity, and I think it is important to call that what it is. Now, this takes us to the bigger picture. And this is the part of the analysis I want you to pay close attention to, because what happens in the next 8 days has implications well beyond this season. Let me zoom out for a moment, take the wider view, because this injury period is happening within a context that matters enormously. Arsenal are competing for a Premier League title against a Manchester City squad that has been built with serious depth for over a decade. When City lose players to injury, Guardiola rotates without losing his tactical identity. The system does not collapse because 3 or 4 key players are unavailable. The principles stay the same. Arsenal are not there yet. Arteta has built something remarkable at this club. The tactical evolution over 4 years has been genuinely impressive. Nobody reasonable would argue otherwise. But the squad depth required to sustain a title challenge across 4 competitions, including Champions League knockout football, is still being developed. And that development costs something. Sometimes it costs you at exactly the wrong moment. Here is the bigger picture question though. Does this summer become the most important transfer window of Arteta's entire time at Arsenal? Because if the right wing problem is not permanently solved, the same weakness will surface again next season. And in the Champions League, where the margins are the finest, that weakness becomes something opponents identify and target from the very first leg. Arsenal need a right winger with elite quality and the durability to play at the highest level consistently. They need a midfielder who can do what Merino does as a press trigger from deep. And they need to ensure that the next time a cluster of injuries arrives in the most critical month of the season, the answer is not a scholarship player making one of his first appearances. None of this is a criticism of where Arsenal currently are. It is simply an honest map of where they still need to get to. There is a difference. And with that in mind, let me show you exactly where I think this is going. So where does this actually go from here? Let me give you 3 realistic paths, because I think framing it this way is more useful than just saying it could go either way. The best case, Rice and Saka come through their assessments and are available for Southampton. Arsenal win the FA Cup quarter-final professionally. Jesus leads the line and gives Gyökeres proper rest before Lisbon. Diamond gets 15 or 20 minutes, shows something, plants a seed. Arteta arrives in Portugal with a rested striker, a functioning defensive shape and a squad that has just won a knockout game with some confidence behind them. That is genuinely achievable, and if it plays out like that, this week looks manageable in hindsight. The realistic case, Arsenal win against Southampton, but it is narrow, unconvincing, a scrappy 1-0. Socia and Rice are carefully managed through the Sporting CP game. Arteta sets up to be compact in Lisbon rather than trying to dominate possession. Arsenal get a result in the Champions League, maybe a draw, maybe a narrow win, but the performance level raises questions. The Premier League run-in becomes the singular focus, and the title race is decided in those final 4 or 5 games. The worst case, Madueke's knee injury turns out to be more serious than first reported. 4 to 6 weeks, Hinkapie's withdrawal becomes a confirmed medium-term absence. Arsenal cannot generate enough in Lisbon, they exit the Champions League, and then everything, all the pressure, all the expectation compresses entirely onto the Premier League. With a squad that is physically stretched, emotionally tested, and missing several of its most important players for the most critical run of games in the season. Now, here is the thing I really want to leave you with. The game that tells us which of these 3 paths Arsenal are actually on is not Southampton. It is Sporting CP. That result, that performance in Lisbon on April the 7th, that is the honest verdict on where this season is genuinely heading. Write that one down. Look, I want to be straight with you before I go. When I was putting this together and I looked at the full picture, the 8-day window, the injury list, the right side completely missing, Merino gone for the long term, for a moment, I actually had to stop. Not to panic, I want to be clear about that, but to appreciate how serious this actually is, because this is not one of those spells where you lose a utility player, shuffle things around and move on. This is Arsenal's tactical identity being stretched to its absolute limit at exactly the moment when the season is at its most demanding. And I know every single person watching this right now is feeling some version of the same thing. That mixture of frustration and belief, knowing this squad is capable of something special, knowing how close it is, and watching the injury list grow at the worst possible time. And that tension is real, and it is completely understandable. I respect what Arteta is navigating right now. I genuinely do. But the job is harder than the headlines are making it sound. So tell me honestly, where are you right now? Do you think Arsenal get through these 8 days and come out the other side still in this title race? Or has the damage already gone too deep? Drop it in the comments. I want to know what you actually think, not just what you are hoping for. I read every single one of them and I will be responding throughout the week. If this video gave you a different way of looking at what is actually happening at Arsenal right now, give it a thumbs up. It helps this channel more than you know. Subscribe if you are not already here, and I will see you for the next one, because this week we have got a lot more to get through.